Welcome to Polk Community Safety First webinar series. Today's webinar is on hazard awareness and analysis. Job safety analysis is observing jobs at our properties to understand where the most dangerous hazards are in our jobs. These hazards cause the most frequent injuries and the most frequent losses. In this presentation, we will learn how to identify these hazards and how to develop controls to eliminate hazards or diminish the danger. We'd like to thank Liberty Mutual for providing some of the information on these slides. So first, let's break down the 4 steps of job safety analysis. Whether you're at work or at home, always take a moment before starting any job to evaluate it for hazards. This seems like general common sense, but sometimes we don't pause if we're frequently doing these jobs. So make sure you're frequently pausing to understand the hazards that could come up during a job. Make sure that what you plan to do makes good sense and isn't inherently dangerous. This will allow you to envision the steps of the job so you can foresee any hazards or pitfalls on every step. Take a moment and look around for potential hazards and then decide what you must do to protect yourself from injury from those hazards. This could be using personal protective equipment. This could be changing the steps in the job. This could be making sure that the hazards are no longer there in general. Remember, hazard recognition is like a personal version of job safety analysis. This is what safety professionals mean when they say, think before you act. A moment of thought can easily prevent a lifetime affected by injury. After identifying hazards through this process, make sure you're developing controls to eliminate those hazards and prevent the accidents from occurring. When we're talking about jobs in job safety analysis, we're not talking about a whole job like an occupation. We're talking about a specific task you may take on in your daily work. Each job can be broken apart to identify the dangerous hazards that may be present. For example, the job of a maintenance person at our company is to snake a toilet. You may have to use personal protective equipment. You may need to be mindful of the floor and the walls around you. You may need to choose the right tools for the job. A job safety analysis will break down this process and identify the hazards of a specific job so measures can be taken to eliminate or control these hazards. The ultimate goal of a job safety analysis is to reduce the risks or hazards of a task, process, or procedure to as low as reasonably practical to protect workers from injury or illness. Of course, for a job safety analysis to be helpful, it must be done prior to the job being performed, and its finding must be implemented into the controls, safe working practices, and procedures. You shouldn't be doing it afterwards, because afterwards, the accident could have occurred already. So what jobs do we analyze? When thinking about which jobs you're analyzing, it's important to be thinking about what jobs are the highest loss, frequency, and severity at your property. This specifically could call it slip and falls and work on ladders. Which jobs are more hazardous in your property? This could be snow removal, lockout, tagout, or as I said, working from an elevation. Think of what jobs receive the most resident or employee complaints. This could be plumbing. This could be electricity. Things that you're frequently doing more often that create more frequent exposure to hazards. And then what jobs might be regulated by federal or state regulations? This could include lead, asbestos, electrical, gas, HVAC. Hopefully most of these we won't be doing internally, but it still represents a present danger and a hazard that we must know about and analyze before taking on. So let's go further into a job hazard analysis. After selecting a job, you'll want to break down those jobs into steps. Select a person to watch and tell them why you're doing it. Pick a person that performs this job frequently. If it's observing someone snaking a toilet, of course, pick a maintenance staff person that does this frequently. Then observe the person doing the job and try to break the job into basic steps. Make sure you're not leaving any steps out. You never want to know what aspects of the job you take for granted. For snaking a toilet, go start to finish, choosing the proper tools, storing the tools correctly, identifying protective equipment, doing an area sweep of the workspace, and identifying a difficult posture and positions that you may get yourself into. Record each step in the breakdown so then you can check the steps are correct and the person you observed is doing everything properly. The person performing the task may do it so frequently they may not notice what could be hazardous, but you will. The person performing the task will be able to clarify any questions you have after performing the job, and specifically about more complex jobs that the observer may not understand initially. Of course, identifying workplace hazards can be difficult. By collecting data and understanding our experiences and communicating with others in our communities, we can better understand the hazards we face in the job. Conducting accident investigations, collecting loss data, and using industry data from other property management companies have been traditional ways by which we have identified workplace hazards in the past. Moving forward, it is important that we practice and hone our communication and observation skills to make sure we're acquainting ourselves with the near misses that occur on the workplace every day and make sure they do not occur again. As far as identifying hazards and potential accidents, this list can be very helpful. The majority of occurrences we see at our properties are the slip and fall hazards. It's important to be aware of our surroundings and use our experience to judge the hazards in a job. Remember any dangerous incidences that may have occurred in the past and use your knowledge and your experience to prevent those from occurring in the future. Be struck by, struck against, or come in contact with a certain hazard. Can the worker strike anything that may cause injury, such as sharp edges or low-hanging objects? This could be moving dumpsters or moving large objects. Can anything strike the worker, such as falling objects, opening doors, or moving vehicles? Can the worker contact anything that may cause injury, such as hot objects, perhaps energized electrical parts, perhaps hazardous chemicals? Can anything harmful contact the worker, such as a pressurized release or electrical arc blast? Can the worker become caught or entrapped by an opening or a configuration of a tool? Can the worker become caught in or caught between any moving equipment, maybe a pinch or a nip? Can the worker slip or trip on anything which may result in the same level fall, or can the worker fall from a higher level? This could be on a ladder, or this could be from snow or floor maintenance. Can the worker be injured from excessive strain from lifting, pushing, pulling, repetitive motions, or awkward postures? You may not recognize this initially, but once you get down and working on this, you're going to notice these repetitive motions or these awkward postures that you may get yourself into. Can you be injured from exposure to heat, to cold, perhaps noise, air quality, or other environmental dangers? This could be dust or mold or toxic fumes. You need to ask these questions before you take on a job. It's so important that you analyze the work that you're doing before you do it. In many cases, the supervisor will be the observer in the job safety analysis. The site property manager or maintenance supervisor are responsible for workplace safety. Because of their experience, they're the most qualified to analyze jobs and really identify these hazards. Identifying these hazards will benefit the property's performance and, of course, reduce accidents. Moving forward, the most valuable information will come from collaboration of observers and actors in developing controls to prevent accidents. Employees who are tasked with doing these jobs every day are certainly experts in understanding the hazards of their jobs. Their hands-on experience provides valuable input when identifying hazards and developing controls to make jobs safer. A supervisor or fellow employee observing a job may notice hazards, but the employee is, of course, the master and performer. It is up to them, up to you, to help in developing controls for the hazard and putting these controls into place. This is your living room, and you need to make sure that you keep yourself safe using these job hazard analysis. When the observer and the performer work together, they can engineer controls that can be very effective in eliminating hazards. One of the best controls is eliminating the hazard completely. This means, for example of this, is cleaning up your workspace eliminates the threat of getting hit in the head with a misplaced object, tripping over a fallen object, or not being able to find something and wasting time. You can also substitute a step in the process to diminish the danger. You can modify a step that causes the danger, or maybe you can completely redesign the job to eliminate the hazard. The last layer is partially revising a job to lessen the danger. Obviously, we want to look to eliminate the hazard completely, but any of these other options are also good as long as you're thinking about the process and making sure you're making changes to keep yourself safe while doing the process and completing the process. After you're engineering this control, you want to make sure not only you are doing this process, but others are as well. You want to make sure there's a policy or procedure in place at your property to make sure that everyone stays safe doing that job. While there are some controls to be engineered, there are also administrative controls which require writing a policy to inform procedure. Training will then take place on this policy, after which the procedure may be revised by the participants who know the job best. After the procedure is revised, employee training can take place. Providing extra breaks when employees are exposed to toxic fumes or doing particular strenuous tasks is an example of a policy change that may be put into place to reduce employee injury. A policy change results in changing how certain tasks are done and redefining the safe way to perhaps paint a room or move a refrigerator. Making sure you're defining a safe way is the most extremely important part of this process. Here are some basic assumptions. We should never assume that change cannot happen because that's the way things have always been done. When making changes to a job that you do every day, keep in mind that people will need to be part of that decision-making process. You can't just make policy changes without asking people who do this task every day what they think is the best solution. People will certainly not necessarily resist change if they see the changes as an improvement to the process. Any tasks we improve together could mean a resident is safer in their home, a guest is safer visiting, or an employee is safer doing their job. To conclude, think about what jobs at your site are particularly hazardous. Could be slipping during safe and snow removal, straining to move heavy furniture or packages, slipping while washing floors, or even the absence of signs to mark dangerous places. Be aware of what could be hazardous to you and your residents and guests. Chances are we can do something to prevent accidents from happening. Thank you very much for listening and have a great day.